Afternoon, and thank you for having me here today. Behind me here is McConkey's Tavern in Pennsylvania. Just beyond it is the Delaware River. This is where it all started, where it all began. Or as you might say these words in these days, this is where it kicked off. Hasn't changed much all these years. Let me explain. On July 4, 1776, when the American Congress declared independence, there was naturally great cause for celebration. There was ringing of bells, grand exhibitions of fireworks. There was 13 rockets on the commons. In fact, I saw a mock funeral to celebrate the tossing out of that prancing, preening Hanover prig, George III. America had declared its independence, but there was still a war to be won. In fact, that very month in April, Britain was determined to crush this rebellion. They sent a large fleet of ships and 35,000 troops to New York. In August, General Howe's redcoats routed the Continental Army on Long Island. In September, George Washington's troops were forced to evacuate New York City. We were on the run. In the following weeks and months, we were forced into and out of New Jersey, and now we were in Pennsylvania, on the west side of the Delaware River, about 35 miles from Philadelphia. Things only stopped moving because it was winter. At this time now, there were only about 35, well, a few thousand troops, soldiers left. And many of their enlistment contracts would be expiring by the end of the year in just a few weeks. General Washington even advised Congress that without more recruits, he said, I think the game will be pretty well up. Things were so bleak that he further advised Congress that they should they should flee, they should get out of Philadelphia at once. Now, at the time, I was an aide to General Greene, and he and the other generals insisted that the country needed me writing more than my fighting. So, with their permission, I walked the 35 miles to Philadelphia. Why? Because that's where their printing presses were. And I tell you, it was not a pleasant journey at all. I was constantly looking over my shoulders, expecting to be captured at any moment. You see, the Brits knew very well who Mr. Common Sense was. So, when I arrived in Philadelphia, the city was in chaos. News of defeat after defeat had frightened everyone. The people were, I could see the deplorable condition the people were in, afraid to speak, almost to think. The printing presses stopped, and nothing in circulation but fears and falsehoods. These citizens could see right across the river the British army able to invade at a moment's notice and force a surrender. The Continental Congress, gone, fled to Baltimore. So, I did what I do best. I wrote. I knew exactly what my fellow citizens needed to hear at this time of invasion and terror, a time I called the American crisis. I attacked with words, the greatest weapon the British had in their arsenal. Fear. Everywhere they looked, Americans saw reasons to be afraid. Afraid of what the British might do to them, their families, their property. Afraid of losing their English citizenship, their English empire. afraid of what this new homemade government in America would do. I thank God I feared not. I saw no real cause for fear. I knew the situation well, and I knew the way out of it. I wrote that this revolution was for a cause far greater than a disagreement over taxes. I promised to bring reason to their ears, and in language as simple as ABC, to hold up the truth to their eyes. On December 19th, I found a printer and published The American Crisis, a pamphlet 18 pages in length. It sold 18,000 copies in a week. Seemed to have a pretty good effect. Recruitment went up, more supplies and donations from the locals came in. Now, General Washington had been considering some bold move ever since arriving in Pennsylvania. And he decided that he would lead the army across the Delaware River, march 9 miles south to Trenton, New Jersey, and attack these German Hessians, these mercenaries that were stationed there. So on December 23, General Washington ordered his commanders to gather their men into small groups and to read aloud the words of the American crisis. It began like this. These are the times that try men's souls. The summer soldier and the sunshine patriot will, in this crisis, shrink from the service of their country. But he that stands by it now deserves the love and thanks of man and woman. Tyranny, like hell, is not easily conquered. Yet we have this consolation with us, that the harder the conflict, the more glorious the triumph. Heaven knows how to put a price upon its goods, and it would be strange indeed if so celestial an article as freedom should not be highly rated. Let it be told to the future world that in the midst of winter, when nothing but hope and virtue could survive, that the city and the country, alarmed by one common danger, came forth to meet and to repulse it. The men prepared for 2 days. And late on Christmas Day, under cover of darkness, using an army of boats, we moved 300 yards across the Delaware River, filled with ice flows and strong currents. By 3 a.m., we had moved 1,400 men across to the other side. From there, we marched. We inched our way south. Many of the men leaving bloody footprints in the snow with their bare feet. A 9-mile trek through a blizzard. We arrived at daybreak and encountered 1,500 Hessians sleeping soundly. We mounted a 3-pronged attack with bayonet, musket, and cannon, the men screaming, "These are the times that try men's souls." After a brief and decisive battle, the Hessians surrendered. We took nearly 1,000 prisoners and all their food and supplies, which is so desperately needed. This victory was proof that we could defeat these German mercenaries and might have a chance against King George after all. I continue to write these essays, these American crisis papers throughout the war. 7 more years until the war came to an end, 1783. My last crisis paper began with these words. The times that tried men's souls are over, and the greatest and completest revolution the world ever knew, gloriously and happily accomplished.